All right, so Eric Trump made some comments yesterday that raised a few eyebrows, particularly among Christians. Watch this.
We're saving Christianity. We're saving God. We're saving the family unit. We're saving this nation.
This is the Dollemore Daily. I'm guest host Garrison Hayes. More about me a little bit later on, but for now, let's dig in. Okay, so it's very clear to me that Eric Trump is living in a fantasy world where everyone's lives are better now, somehow, despite the cost of living and the cost of groceries and the cost of goods and the cost of services. Despite all of those things going up, life is better because of his father's self-interested, impulse-driven economic policy plan, or lack thereof. I think that's weird enough. But what I really want you to listen to is the way he talks about Christianity.
And look how much better humanity and our world is. We're saving Christianity. We're saving God. We're saving the family unit. We're saving this nation. DEI is out the window, Benny. You no longer have Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem. You no longer have, a Budweiser going woke as hell. Or all of this is dead. And yet, what do we have? We have a return to people going to church. We have a return to people, valuing their children and valuing society and believing in the white picket fence and what the American dream represents and what the American dream stands for, and American exceptionalism and peace around the world, and that people can coexist with one another without having to, pick up arms and destroy each other for no reason whatsoever, other than, incompetent and egotistical governments. It's a beautiful time, and he will go to heaven for all of that.
This is weird. My take is that there is something so small about these people's worlds. I think when you think about the billionaire class and really, really wealthy people, you think that they have homes everywhere and they have access to all this stuff, planes and boats and parties and everything. They can go anywhere and do anything, so they must have the biggest worlds imaginable. But when you listen to them, when you actually listen to what they're saying, it is evident that their worlds are so small. I'm going to come back to the Christian thing because I want to talk about that particularly. But I think it's important to address at least one or two of these other points first.
You no longer have Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem.
When he mentions Colin Kaepernick, my eyebrows kind of raise because what are you talking about? When Colin Kaepernick was kneeling during the national anthem before games and maybe even during games at times, my life, if I'm honest with you, was not made better or worse. I thought it was an important gesture. I thought it brought awareness to an important issue. I thought he was doing his part. I was proud of him and thankful for his sacrifice, but I still had things to do, obligations to meet, bills to pay, a life to lead. More importantly, Colin Kaepernick hasn't played professional football since January 1st, 2017. Nearly a decade has passed since he's been on an NFL field, and you're still talking about him. How small is your world? Perhaps more importantly, this just dawned on me. How small do you think our worlds are? How small do you think our worlds are that this is still relevant, that this is still something that people are thinking about? Perhaps I'm giving too much credit to people. Perhaps some people's worlds really are that small, where now 8 years later, almost a decade later, people are still thinking about, ruminating on how mad they were when Colin Kaepernick was able to play professional football in the NFL back in 2017. That's crazy to me, but not nearly as crazy as the idea that Donald Trump, that his political allies are saving Christianity. The reality is that Christianity existed before Donald Trump, and it will exist after Donald Trump. I don't know if you are a believer, but if you are a person who subscribes to the theology of the Bible and you do believe in a Christian God, then you believe that God existed in eternity past and will exist in eternity future, which means that there is nothing you can do or that I could ever do to save God. This is a heretical idea. The notion that a God needs saving would necessarily mean that this being is not God. If your faith, if your Christianity needs to be saved, it is necessarily weaker than the forces present in the world. And that's just not what Christians believe theologically. Christians believe that they serve an all-powerful God and that their faith is more powerful than the things that are happening in this world. But I get the sense, and I've said this before, these people ain't never read the book anyway. I think the funniest thing about this clip is the fact that it was all in service of essentially building out Trump's qualifications for going to heaven, which came up the other day while Trump was talking to reporters on Air Force One. Watch this clip.
Go ahead. You had talked a couple weeks ago, you were doing an interview, and you talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven, okay? I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven. But I've made life a lot better for a lot of people. And, as an example, had the election of 2020 not been rigged, you would have millions of people living just in Russia, Ukraine alone.
I don't know if there's anything that Trump has ever done or will ever do that isn't self-serving. Like, even when his sons are on podcasts, they are there to make the case before, I don't know, is it before God? Or is the idea here that Eric Trump is like praying almost, like he's making the case to God, like, hey, God, Trump saves you, by the way, just so you know. I don't know. This is crazy. I'm calling it there. I've told you what I think, but I want you to tell me what you think down in the comments. Again, my name is Garrison Hayes. I am here as a guest host while Jesse is out for a little bit. I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel just after you subscribe to Jesse's channel. Be sure to like this video. It sends good vibes to the algorithm and to Jesse that I'm doing an okay job. So be sure to like this video. Again, my channel is linked below. Please consider giving me a subscription down there. Listen, also follow Jesse on all platforms at Dollemore everywhere. So easy. You can find links to my social media stuff as well over on my channel. All right, that's it for me in this one. I'll see you in the next one.